Hello, these glasses are not prescription. These are blue light filtering glasses. I have them on because they're doing an okay job of covering up a breakout on my face. I, I didn't want that on camera, but I wanted to film this, so yeah, just if you're wondering, that's why. So there is a really common theme, or at least I think it's a really common theme. It was kind of hard to find examples of this because Google is useless, but there's a really common theme among incels and like other adjacent types like red pill guys, men's right activists, like that whole manosphere thing. There is a common theme when you look on their forums and subreddits and stuff of them telling stories which are obviously either fabricated or grossly exaggerated, where they reject women. Like, they will usually use very unpleasant terminology to describe them, like, oh, some roasty who's been run through by 18 different Chads and is about to go over the hill asked me out the other day. I said, fuck you, roasty, and then she cried. Like, you know, that's a pretty common theme. That's basically the outline of all of these stories. And that's something I've seen a lot. And in more recent years, the term Chadfishing has become a thing. And that's basically like catfishing, but specifically in an incel-y way, where they're doing it to upset and humiliate the target. See, catfishing is usually done for money or just for amusement, like as a prank. They're not really trying to hurt anyone's feelings. They still wind up doing that a lot, but that's not really the intention. Chadfishing is one where they go to really elaborate lengths to try and get around verification on like Bumble and Tinder and stuff, and they use pictures of really good-looking men, and then they'll try to get women to agree to go on a date with this fake person, and they'll get them to drive a really long distance, and then once they arrive there, they'll try and, you know, act confused and get them to wander around and act lost and just, you know, make their day worse, you know, and then eventually just maybe send them a harsh message or something, or just be mean to them or ghost them and block them or something. You know, the point is to upset them and hurt their feelings. And this all kind of reminds me of a movie from the 90s called In the Company of Men, which I don't know if I necessarily recommend that movie. Like, it's not bad. It's actually pretty well made, but man, I felt hollowed out the first time I watched that movie. Like, afterwards, I just felt empty inside. Like, I felt like I had seen a side of humanity that should not be seen. But basically, that movie is about two dudes who conspire to manipulate and break the heart of a lonely, depressed, deaf woman.
And then one day, out goes a rug, and us pulling it hard. And Jill, trust me, she'll be reaching for the sleeping pills within a week.
And I swear I'm not making this up. The character in the movie who comes up with the plan and is the ringleader of the whole thing is named Chad. I'm not making that up. Again, this was from the 90s, so that was not deliberate. It's just a very fortunate coincidence, let's say. The point is, this sort of thing has been around for decades. In fact, I think incels, even though we didn't have that term until recently, I think incels have been around in some form as long as humanity has been around, quite frankly. But the other day I was just thinking about this. You know, this isn't exactly a trending topic or anything. It's just something that came to mind, and I feel like a lot of people don't quite understand why this is a thing. You know, why incels would either make up these stories about rejecting women or just straight up put them in a position where they can reject this woman. You know, like Chadfishing, that is essentially what it is. It's just an elaborate scheme to get a woman interested in you, even though it's not really you, so that you can pull the rug out from under her. And every time I've seen people discuss this, and this goes back quite a while, they act weirded out and they go, sometimes they joke about it and say something like, wow, even in their fantasies these guys can't get laid. But that's really missing the point. See, this whole thing kind of reminds me of something I did when I was like 17, even though it's not, it has nothing to do with dating, but it is kind of similar. See, one day when I was 17, I got a text message from an unknown number, and this was a long time ago. I don't have these messages saved. I just have what I can remember, what I can recall from them. Basically, it was someone I didn't know texted me, and I asked them who they were, and they just messed around with me for a little while. They referred to themselves as Mexicano Batman, which was kind of funny. And I don't know, they were clearly just joking around with me, and I understood that early on. I wasn't upset or anything. I just kind of went along with it because it was slightly amusing. And then the next day, they texted me again, and they were not joking anymore. They were just acting friendly. And I don't know who this person was. I actually asked at school the next day, like, hey, did one of you idiots text me from another number and claim to be Mexicano Batman? And no one knew who it was. So this might have been somebody I knew at school or something. It might have been a total stranger. I don't know who it was. But the point is, they continued texting me in a friendly way the next day, and I just, in a very mean and rude way, I just told them to fuck off. You know, like, in fact, I just straight up said, fuck off, more than once, I think. And just, I went out of my way to, like, swear and be as unpleasant as possible. And after one or two times, they're like, dude, I was just having fun last night. Why you gotta be mean about this? And I just, continued doing that until they stopped sending me anything. And then I never spoke to this person again. And even while I was doing this, I remember thinking to myself, why? Why am I doing this? Because, like, I wasn't angry with them. I wasn't annoyed or upset with them for anything they had done. I was just doing this because I could. And yeah, when I was 17, I was definitely in my anti-SJW phase, but, like, I wasn't doing this for, like, political reasons. Like, yeah, I'm sticking it to insert whatever boogeyman I was annoyed or upset with at that time. Like, I wasn't doing it for that reason. And like I said, even at the time, I knew this was pointless and stupid, and I was just making someone's day a little bit worse for no real reason other than that I could. And something that a lot of people don't seem to understand is that if you can influence someone's emotional state in a positive or a negative way, that gives you a little bit of control over them. Like, a positive way of looking at this is, like, if you're just really funny and charming and you're good at making people laugh, like, you can influence people, you can control them a little bit, and you have a little bit of power by just, being good at that. But the opposite side of this coin is if you're good at just being unpleasant and making people's day a little bit worse. Like, there's an old Calvin and Hobbes comic, I'll put it up here if I can find it, where Calvin is talking to Susie at the bus stop, and he's just mean to her for a few panels, and then she's upset by the end of it, even though she was happy at the end, and Calvin thinks to himself, there's nothing helps a bad mood quite like spreading it around. And that's what I was doing to this random person that texted me, who, again, I still don't know who this person was. Like, I have no idea. It could have been someone I knew. I seriously don't know. But that's what I was doing to this person. That's what Chadfishers, would that be the term? I don't know. That's what they are doing to random women that they feel like bothering. And that's what these other incels and incel-adjacent types are either doing or fantasizing about doing when they tell stories about rejecting women. Because here's the thing, no one wants to feel like they have no power and no control. Like, people come up with really weird and oftentimes fucked up ways of trying to regain some sense of control. Like, this is why people will self-harm. Oftentimes this is why people commit suicide or just do any number of other things because they want at least some small measure of control over what's happening in their own lives. And, inceldom as an ideology, the whole idea of it is that you are destined to either be a Chad or a Beta or a Becky or a Stacy or whatever those fucking terms are that they use. Like, you're destined to this from the beginning. Like, the Chads get all the women and the rest of us have to make do with scraps. The rest of us can only beg for a crumb of pussy now and again, which I love the phrase crumb of pussy. Like, the incel dialect is just so goddamn funny. But that's what these guys do. They have convinced themselves that they just have no control, and they're trying to gain some sense of it. Even if it's just a facsimile of it, even if they're just fantasizing about it, they're trying to gain some level of control over this. And incels specifically go after women because they hate women and blame them for their own, failures and their own pain. Because, that's what incels are. That's where inceldom comes from. It comes from a place of deep pain. That doesn't excuse all their beliefs and actions. It doesn't excuse most of their beliefs and actions, quite frankly. But that is where it comes from. It comes from depression and self-loathing, and again, feeling like you just have no power and no control, and in some small way, they want to regain that. I don't necessarily want to say that it's easier to affect people's moods in a negative way than in a positive way. I don't want to say it's easier to just be kind of rude and unpleasant and make their day worse than it is to smile and be happy and tell a funny joke that makes them laugh. I think that these actually both require around the same level of emotional intelligence, but the point is, that's kind of the only way that some people can approach it. The only way they can think, okay, I can gain some control over this situation and this person by just being rude and unpleasant to them and making their day a little bit worse. Again, like I did to the Mexicano Batman who texted me 11-ish years ago. Some people can do this in a sociopathic way, yeah, again, in The Company of Men. If you've seen that movie, Chad is a fucking psychopath. By the end of the movie, we find out, oh, this dude is just a sadist. He's just hurting people emotionally and negatively affecting their lives just because he can. But even in his case, I feel like that probably comes from some deep-rooted insecurities and trauma in his life. But again, he's a fictional character. He doesn't necessarily have to make sense. Here's the thing, though. This deliberately, trying to make other people miserable is basically just self-harm. It's not a whole lot different than cutting your wrists because you want to feel something and, again, regain some sense of control. Because if you're that type of person, then after a while, you're going to forget how to be normal. You're going to forget how to be pleasant. You're going to forget that different situations require you to act in different ways. And you're pushing people away, I guess. That might sound a little trite, but that is essentially what it is. It is self-harming behavior in an attempt to try and regain some semblance of control over your own situation. I don't have a strong closer or a strong conclusion to this, but I was just thinking about how these types of dudes will make up stories like that, or fantasize about stories like that. Or in some cases, this might be true, or at least partially true. Again, Chadfishing, that's a thing. This is people trying to make others miserable just to feel some sense of control, just to feel yes, I exist and I matter for at least a couple of minutes. And a lot of people who respond to that and go, wow, even in their fantasies, these guys can't get laid, are completely missing the point. And that's basically all I wanted to say here. That's it. And yes, I am still doing Why Is YouTube. I've had the next episode, I've had it recorded for quite a while. I just haven't gotten around to editing it. Doing things is difficult, but thanks for watching. See you later. Goodbye.